No problem. So it's good to see you. Are you in the same place where we did the original screening?
Yeah, same in the Pearl, yeah.
Really, really missed that area. You saw me walking to work a few times in that
I
area.
did when you were, was it Vacasa or no?
Vacasa building, working at SeatGeek at the time.
Yeah. Not,
Uh,
oh, right, right.
yeah, there was an awesome company. I really miss those days. Still doing the tech thing, but for a different company, working
Cool.
remotely in Spokane now. But
Very cool.
thank you so much for being here. Just for a quick introduction, and forgive me if I mispronounce your last name, but I went on Google Pronunciator. And I wanted to make sure I got it. So please correct me if I do it
Sure.
injustice. I don't say your last name often, but joining us today on the Ponder All podcast is Devin Fei-Fan Tau. Did I get it right?
Perfect.
All right. Writer, director, producer, most currently for the documentary Who's on Top, that chronicles four members of the LGBTQA plus community and their plight to climb Mount Hood, which, for those of you that don't know, for those of you that are not from Portland or Seattle or Spokane, Mount Hood is the second largest mountain climbing excursion in the world, next to Japan's Mount Fuji. So I was pretty impressed by that. I didn't realize that it was the second largest excursion. It's very
Huge.
popular.
Yeah. Big
That's
deal.
awesome. So your story, I just screened it today again. I had watched it the other night, and I wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything, so I watched it again today as I was doing some work. And I've got to say that the narrative is super strong. Each of the subjects that you've chosen, we have four: Taylor, Shanita, Ryan, and Stacy, and it kind of chronicles their personal coming out stories and uses the mountain climbing as an allegory for that, which is
Yes,
awesome.
sir.
So the
Thank
narrative
you.
is awesome. So yeah, coming out and climbing a mountain are similar. They are both hard climbs. It's one of the best lines out of the first act. I mean, I really enjoyed this story, and I got to tell you, as someone that came out later in life, John and Julie were there for that during that time, super supportive. This
Wow.
was super moving for me. There was moments I had to pause the screener and take a breather. Like, whoa, this is like tapping into something deep and personal, and I'm sure that resonated with a lot of people. So great job
Thank
on the
you.
finished product. So we'll just dive right into it. So the evolution of the story. Where in the world did you get the idea for taking members of the community and let's go climb the highest second highest mountain excursion in the world?
Well, I mean, Luis, you used to live in Portland, so you remember how everywhere you go, the mountains kind of like it's like a portrait in an art museum. Like the eyes are following you all throughout the
Mm-hmm.
museum. I think there's something similar, at least for me, with Mount Hood. And it doesn't matter if you're in the Willamette Valley in wine country. It doesn't matter if you're like by the airport, if you're St. John's, like really anywhere in like Portland Metro, you're gonna see the mountain. And someone who's lived here for now, I don't know, 11 years,
Mm-hmm.
12 years. It was always top of mind to want to climb it. And as someone who was, I had directed and produced 10 shorts, and a huge milestone as a filmmaker is to graduate to a feature. And so I wanted my first feature to be easy, so I decided to do one about mountain climbing, even though I've never done
Right.
that.
Easy, huh? That's awesome.
Yeah. And it um, I always was aware of the metaphor between a journey and in terms of coming out and journey of climbing a mountain. So that was just so vivid and obvious to me. And so, wanting to tell a visual story, there's nothing more beautiful than Y East.
Mm-hmm.
The Native American word for Mount Hood. So it all kind of just clicked. And in addition, always similar to like what Ryan said in the film, but I always felt that previous generations of gay people, we tended to be a little bit insular. We tended to have a lot of gay friends, but not necessarily friendships with other people in the letters.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to challenge myself, and rather than just complain about it, I wanted to meet at least a few other people in the community, and this was a great opportunity to do that.
Very much so. So let's talk about choosing your subjects and the casting call, for this kind of thing. Obviously not traditional. You're asking people to do a pretty large excursion, a lot of risk involved. What was the casting call for that? Like, did you go through an agency and let them know, or did you kind of do an open call, or?
Yeah, great question. I'm a narrative filmmaker at heart, and in the old days, there were these very different approaches if you're narrative versus documentary. I think that's disappearing a little bit more in my generation and younger. But I think one major step that I took that was a little bit different from a traditional documentary process was I had an open casting call.
Awesome.
We did a huge social media thing. The requirements were minimal. You had to be LGBTQ. You had to live in Oregon or Washington, and you had to want to climb a mountain, train to be willing to commit to climbing a mountain, and then want to appear on camera to tell your story of doing that. So we had a lot of people apply. So we had an application process. You had to answer a handful of essay questions. Some people wrote one-word answers to
Hmm.
these open-ended essay questions. Some people wrote pages and pages of responses.
Mm.
So we took that to heart, right? And to make it past that round, and eventually there was the on-camera round. And so for the on-camera round, I think we had like 12 people. It was 2 days. Some of the footage we shot at that final round actually is in the final film.
Okay.
So a big part was really finding people who were far along in their journey in order to be able that they felt comfortable communicating it on camera. Another part was really um, they had to be camera ready in a sense that um, they couldn't be too shy. They needed to be
Hmm.
articulate. They needed to be um, secure about their process to be able to be vulnerable.
Wow.
So I think that's a huge bar.
Yeah.
And I mean, this is why I'm not in the documentary. I don't have that confidence.
I saw you pop up a couple times, but I hear what
Yeah,
I
no,
hear what you
but I mean, like answering the questions, right? These
mean.
are
Yeah.
really, really hard questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so luckily we found four amazing people who were willing to be a part of the journey. And I mean, just to like set context, we started this in fall of 2018. So it's now summer 2021 and we're still going.
Hmm.
We have screenings booked through like next year.
Excellent.
We've done a whole bunch of corporate stuff. We have other. There's just like so. we're,
Yeah.
we're doing a podcast now still. So
Hmm.
there's the tail of the film is so long, and so it's like mini reunions every time we do a panel. Get to see
Yeah.
everybody and kind of catch up a little bit.
That's excellent. I'm curious about crewing for this as well. I noticed that I'm just really, I mean, every time I've done a short film, um, or even taking stabs at like proof of concept for features, it's always like, someone that knows someone, you've had success with them in the past, you really click. That probably happened this time, but the extra element of, oh, there's your life's at stake here. What were those conversations like? And um, yeah, what was that like, just in general?
Yeah, and then the part about what you said about the kind of close knit
Hmm.
network and community, like for sure that was a big part of this. I mean, there were only um, The crew was really just three people. It was
Hmm.
me and two camera people, and then we did have two extra people that came in and out. Our still photographer, and then our behind the scenes.
Excellent.
Um, Second, I guess third camera person, and then we also had I guess a fourth on summit camera person that came in just for that. But for the most part, it was really just the three of us, and part of the creating process was, hey, are you like physically able to
Hmm.
climb a mountain? None of us had done that yet, but we were interested, we were engaged, we were inspired to do that, and then we were willing to commit to training. Uh, so, yeah, it was like a very high standard in terms of a job
Yeah.
description.
Talk about physical demands. Yeah, for sure. That's so cool.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, and I mean, you may, I'm sure you already know this, but for people who don't know, the people holding the cameras, they have to do like double the distance because they
oh
have to
yeah.
run ahead. They let the people pass and they have to run ahead. There's a lot of this, like if you have a dog and you ever gone hiking with them, you see
Hmm.
them run ahead, they come back, they run the other way. So, uh, luckily, I didn't have any cameras.
Yeah.
I
So,
tried to do that.
that's what I was going to ask next. I'm glad you brought that up. So one thing I really enjoyed about this film was the animated kind of guiding point as to where they were,
The map.
the map,
Uh huh.
the animated map, because it kind of brought you back as you would bounce back to their personal story and
Uh
then like,
huh.
okay, back to the conflict, the big conflict. There's some major conflicts going on here. Like you're having to, and I couldn't even imagine what was going through your head, at 5,000 feet. You're having to deal with the elements of weather. You're racing against the clock. I didn't realize that the first time I had seen this with you, that once the sun comes up, it makes everything a lot more dangerous because of the heat element and melting of the ice, which can cause all kinds of problems. That's scary. Then you're dealing with other people's physicality, making sure that they're okay to get up the hill. Then your own physicality. Are your cameramen okay? What's going through your head at 5,000 feet and up the whole time?
I'm not even sure how to answer that question. I do want to thank you again for being a guinea pig to watch such an early cut.
Hmm.
You watched a very, very early cut, and hopefully you saw some improvements.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I don't want to sit here and say that, it was night and day, but when you've
It's night
as
and
so,
day.
as someone that went to a lot of test screenings when I was in LA, you go, this is part of the process. You bring in your first audience, you get their unfettered, unfiltered feedback. You go back, apply that feedback, make their narrative stronger. Yeah, it's really strong improvements, for
Thank you.
sure.
Yeah, we ended up doing 2 rounds of that.
Hmm.
And then I believe, oh, for sure, you guys, your round mentioned a lot of things like where are we on the mountain, like what's going
Yep.
on. I was so confused, and that was very consistent feedback in the second round too. So the map was a great, um, our attempts
Hmm.
to ground the audience specifically because
Right.
we were jumping so much. And so thank you for acknowledging that. And I think it also was like a secondary visual iconography or like tool to really help people really bridge that journey metaphor.
Hmm.
So it all kind of worked out. Thank goodness.
Yeah, we all like to know where we're at, right? I mean, even
Yeah.
even to this day, I went Funko Pop shopping with my son, and I hate going to malls. So the first thing we did is look for that directory. Okay, where is this store? How long is it gonna take to get there, and how
Yeah.
long is it gonna take for me to get back? So super super cool that you added that element. Added a
Yeah.
lot of intensity to it too.
Yeah, yeah. But to answer your question, which is what was thinking in my mind, or our respective minds, there was so many things happening, Luis. Some of it I had, or I should say, there's so many things happening. I could have controlled like this tiny, tiny bit of
Yeah,
that, and
yeah.
then the rest, I just had to trust the process. I had to trust. the camera people were in the right spots. Strategically, we had set, these groupings, and certain camera people were assigned to certain
Hmm.
groupings, and so at least we would have coverage. We also had other check-in points. We had walkie-talkies. We also had contingency plans. So, um, I mean, it's like anything else. You measured, what's that expression? Measure twice, cut once. We spent a lot of time in pre-production, specifically about the climb to figure out, you know, do we let's do the homework now, right? Because to your point, when we're at 10,000 feet, you really can't be trying to solve a problem that you did not thought about before. It's not the right time to be problem solving. You should have already gone through all your scenarios, and then it was just executing when you're at that point, in the journey. And I think that too is a metaphor, a really nice metaphor for life, right?
Hmm.
At least how I live my life was I definitely try to
Plan.
be very planful, and I might not have anticipated the exact situation, but then I would have hopefully already thought through a similar situation. And then is that knowledge or is that best practice something I could leverage on? And then for me to quickly assimilate those data points and then come up with the best solution I had at the time, given
Yeah.
those resources, right?
Yeah.
And so I guess how I would kind of finish that thought, like and put a bow around it, which is uh, the climb was not perfect. The film is not perfect. We definitely, I feel very grateful and so thankful. We did the best we could with our resources,
Yeah.
and luckily we had really supportive corporate partners. We had amazing professional guides that helped us with the summit. We had amazing cast members, and obviously the crew was awesome, and just so everyone was there for the right reason.
Yeah.
Thank goodness. And I
Yeah.
think that's what made the project successful.
Mhm. Yeah. Awesome. Well, good work. I thoroughly enjoyed what I saw. Very motivating. Not just for filmmakers, but for anybody that is striving to accomplish something. Nothing's ever gonna be perfect, but it's how you measure how far you got, you know, that much farther than where you were when you started. So I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
So my next question is, you said you wanted to do your a feature kind of starting out easy. So if this is your idea of easy, what in the world is your next project going to be like?
Oh, Luis, I'm so glad you asked that. I'm actually directing and producing two feature films right now because when I only did one at a time, it was like way too easy, right? To your point.
Yeah, on a mountain. Yeah, so might as well do two.
So I'm literally directing and producing two feature films right now. One is a narrative feature called Half Sisters.
Okay.
It's a thriller, and it's about these two estranged sisters that reunite at their grandmother's cabin
Oh,
after being estranged for a long time, and it's happening in the middle of a storm while they're being attacked by these intruders.
oh my goodness.
So in
Wow.
terms of stakes, in terms of like a clock race to get like a time element, in terms of life and death, like we're trying to hit super high alert on all three
Yeah, sounds
conflicts.
intense.
There's a
Intense.
lot of it's very intense. How I describe it is it's a character-driven thriller that is centered around these two women,
Mhm.
and that was definitely something I had not seen, have not heard of in our industry.
Mhm.
And specifically, it's loose. It has themes similar to Get Out. So specifically, it has to do with racism.
Mhm.
So the
Awesome.
older white sister, um, and her half black younger sister were raised by their racist grandmother who died.
Mhm.
In her death, or upon her death, she's trying to reconcile and pay penance. Um, pen, penance.
Penance, yeah.
Penance. Thank you.
Oh, you're
To pay
fine.
penance and to like um, fix her wrongs in the past, right? And then what's interesting is unexpectedly we see grandmother's racism now through the lens of Lisa as she interacts with Isabel, the older
Mhm.
sister. So that is a very very strong theme in the film, and we're trying to convey this really topical theme.
Mhm.
We're doing it hopefully as an audience member you find it entertaining
Yeah.
because it is a thriller. There are stakes. There are a lot of stakes. There's $1 million at stake also from the inheritance.
Oh boy.
There's there's they're being attacked. Like, are they gonna find the inheritance before the intruders kill them? You know, they're are they do they reconcile?
Yeah.
Sisters reconcile.
Yeah, I love a good home invasion movie. I was telling my last guest that I don't know how this happened. I ended up missing Peck and Paw's Straw Dogs, had never seen it, and then saw it at Quentin's Theater. And it's home invasion. The third act is all home invasion. And there's nothing like your element of peace and security being attacked like physically that just takes a story to the next level. What's your other one about?
So the yeah, no thanks. So that's at the end of the year we're filming. So we're in pre-production now.
Cool.
The second film is I got a commission by the federal government to do a feature documentary. It's called The Road Home,
Hmm.
and specifically it's about people on parole and on probation. And so we're actually traveling all over the country to interview people that are on probation and on parole. In addition, we're meeting with state commissioners, we're meeting with parole and probation officers, we're meeting subject matter experts. It's luckily I've not um, had any um, first person interaction
Right.
with the criminal justice system.
That's good.
Knock on wood. I don't know if you could see me knocking on wood.
Yeah. That's
Um,
good though.
um, Having said that, I think I definitely had a perception of what that meant
Hmm.
and all the loaded language and I mean just so much to unpack there, right? And so I was so lucky. So my company and I we were hired because they liked Who's on Top so much. They hired us to do a documentary on their behalf about this program.
Excellent.
Yeah, yeah, and it's. I knew I would learn a lot, but I have to say it's totally exceeded my expectations. Not just like about the technical filmmaking
Hmm.
aspects, which you always do the more you film, but more specifically about people um, in our country that I've only heard about or read about or seen in on shows, but like to talk to them in person um, and to have them walk me through these traumatic, so many traumatic moments.
Mm.
Uh, it's really challenged my preconceived notions and everything I thought I knew about these people, whatever that means, right?
Yeah.
And I have way more sympathy and empathy
Thank you.
and just understanding and appreciation for the nuances, right? It's not like, oh, they're lazy because they're this race, or they're lazy because they do drugs, or whatever, right? Like it's so offensive to even say
Mhm.
those words. It's like there's
Humans.
like millions of parts to that story,
Yeah.
and if you're just gonna summarize it in that way, that's not acceptable.
Right. Wow. Well, you got a lot of really awesome, cool things going on. Congratulations for all of it. I can't wait to see both those projects and to see you
Thank
continue to
you.
thrive. This show is all about people I look up to. Um, and had some stellar interviews so far, this one included, and I view it as, you always learn from the best and always learn from people that are interested in the same thing. And where can people keep track of, first of all, where do you think they can see Who's on Top when it's available on streaming, and then how can they keep track of your other projects?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. It's a couple ways.
Mhm.
Our website, which is nosunrisewasted.com/, who's on top. But if you just go to the production company website, you'll see the navigation, who's on top. We're also on social media. So on Instagram specifically, it's Who's on Top Doc.
Cool.
And then obviously for the film production company, it's No Sunrise Wasted. And for Half Sisters, it's Half Sisters Movie on Instagram.
Yeah, I follow. I think we follow each other on that one.
Yeah, yeah. And then we're not gonna have social media for or a standalone social media handle for the road home. But we have been using that hashtag. But
Okay.
as we're traveling all over the country, I've been posting to No Sunrise Wasted on Instagram. But to answer your question more specifically, those two films are releasing next year.
Cool.
Specifically, the federal documentary is commissioned to screen next September 2022 at an annual meeting that's taking place in New York City,
Wow.
and that's end of September. And then for Half Sisters, the strategy and the plan is to be done roughly May, June next year, and hopefully also get distribution by that point, so then we could have a Halloween 2022 release.
Smart.
October
Yeah.
2022, yeah.
Yeah. That genre fits. Very appropriate genre for that timeline.
Yeah, yeah, it's great year round, but
Mm.
especially like in October, that's like definitely like a peak seasonality for thriller and
Oh
horror.
yeah. That's awesome. Well, again, congratulations. Thank you so much for taking it was the time out to come on the podcast. It was so good to see you. And
Thanks, Luis.
yeah, I'm gonna be my new company is based in Portland, so Portland's always gonna be home base.
Yeah.
Doing a little project that I don't want to jinx myself and talk about, but some of it has to do with Portland and the Portland comic scene. So
Okay.
I'll be there quite a bit. So I'll look you up and we'll get together and check
Please. Yeah,
check some
drinks on
stuff out.
me. Yeah.
Awesome. That sounds great. Thank you so much again for your
Thanks,
time
Luis.
and have the good rest of your day. Okay.
Okay.
Bye bye.
Bye.